Guys, I hope that was a good warm-up. It was demonstrating what we were learning last week, top control, understanding how to utilize movements, maintaining frames and levers on our opponent to maintain the top position, as opposed to just forcing our weight to be the thing to hold them down, which again, inherently is not wrong, but we want to be able to open up opportunities for attack as opposed to not letting anything happen. So we're going to focus on the other half now, which is the escape, okay? And this is more difficult than staying on top, just because when you're staying on top of somebody, you have gravity helping you, your back is not against the ground. It's way easier to maintain a top position than it is to escape from a negative bottom position. And when you hear us say that term, negative bottom position, it's generally referring to three main positions: side mount, mount, knee on belly. These are the top positions that we need to escape from. Thankfully, our concept for all three of these is going to be the same. And it's similar to our concept for guard retention. We're going to be creating a frame between us and our opponent, and then hip escaping or mobilizing our hips to get our guard back underneath them. All right, so I'm just going to preface with this. You shouldn't be able to escape from the mount, okay? If you're able to escape from the mount, then the person on top is not doing their job, right? The mount is an extremely powerful position, and because of that, it's very difficult to escape the mount. So if you have trouble with escaping from the mount, that is the truth. That is good. That means your partner's doing their job. So don't let a failed escape frustrate you. As long as we remember to maintain good alignment and be as technical as possible, you'll escape eventually, okay? You might not be able to escape in a matter of seconds, but it will take, you know, maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes, but you will eventually escape, so long as you don't get frustrated and you don't make silly mistakes. So first thing that we're going to look at, guys, is going to be our basic frame and hip escape. And this is the foundation for all negative bottom position escapes in jiu-jitsu. And it's very straightforward. It's very simple. I'm going to demonstrate it first, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so here's the idea, guys. I'm going to start by creating a frame to maintain my opponent's weight. And this frame is going to be using the forearm. All right, so we're creating, again, like a scaffold. Okay, that's one way you can think about it. So like a scaffold that's going to hold up a building. When my opponent's sitting on top of me like this, the bridge escape, which is an escape that some of you may be familiar with, which is where I bridge my hips to try to knock them over, is definitely a thing that you could try. However, if this person knows how to maintain the mount, they're going to understand how to disconnect their hips and ride the bridge. So as I go to do a bridge escape, he's just going to disconnect his hips and ride on top of me. So that means two things are happening. Number one, you're wasting your energy. And number two, you need to move on and try to hip escape. The hip escape is the most common escape from the negative bottom positions. So here's how we're going to start, guys. I need to get his hands on the mat. And the reason for that is if his hands are not on the mat, then all of his weight is centered above my hips. So there's no way that I'm going to be able to slide my hips out from underneath him. So essentially, I want to make his legs as light as possible. So to do that, let's rotate here, coach. To do that, I'm going to take my knee, and I'm going to knee him in the bottom. As soon as I knee him in the bottom, I'm going to maintain this frame here, stepping on my own knee to keep this frame essentially right behind his butt. Now, what I don't want to happen in the mount is I don't want my opponent to get to what we call a high mount. And a high mount is where he infiltrates the knee-elbow space, and he gets up underneath here, and now my elbows are flailing in the wind, my arms here, and so he has complete lever control over me because I'm not able to maintain good structure by keeping my elbows close to my ribs. So what we're going to do is we're going to fight to get a frame in front of his hips to prevent him from coming up any higher. So we can put this frame in at any point. However, it generally is easiest to do it when I'm knocking him forward with the knee. So the frame is going to look like this. We'll rotate back. The frame is going to look like this. I'm going to keep my forearm across his hip line, and I'm going to reinforce that with my left hand. Okay? If I flip this, and I'm grabbing this way, when he pushes his weight forward, my hand slides off. So I want to put my forearm across his hip line. If he has a gi on, I can definitely grab onto the pants or the skirt. That's fine. But I'm going to reinforce my wrist with my other hand. And I'm looking to keep my elbow in between his knee and my ribs. Okay? So again, I don't want my elbow outside. I'm looking to get my elbow in between the two of us. And we're going to look at how to get that elbow there in a little bit. So I can get this frame in at any point, either after I knock him forward or before I knock him forward. Okay? So a good way to start, guys, is going to be on your back, elbows start in. I'm going to knock him forward, and as he's coming down, I've got that frame against his hip. Okay? Now, what I need to do, guys, is I need to get on my side. If I'm just laying here, I'm not going to be able to get on my side by simply rolling over. Right? If he's pinching his knees tight, I can't turn my body. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust our opponent's center of gravity to one side of our body. And we're going to do that by using the frame that we've built on his hip here. I'm going to bridge, and I'm going to use this frame to lift his hips up a little bit just so I can get onto my side. Okay? Now I'm on my side, and I'm going to be able to start hip escaping. So here's my goal. My goal is to get the knee behind me off of the mat. So this knee that I'm pointing at here, I need to get this knee off the mat. When both of Coach Seth's legs are touching the floor, he's creating a box around my hips. Frames. If I can get one of those frames off the ground, so if we just tilt this way, Coach, if I can get one of his knees off the mat, now my hips can access this as a lever and start to escape from underneath him. So how do we do that? I've gotten onto my side. I'm going to do another bridge. As I bridge, I'm going to be trying to push his hips to my left side. As I do that, he is, of course, going to counter by posting his hands out. If he doesn't, then he's just going to fall over. All right? And this is not realistic. Nobody's just going to fall over when you do this. So as I bridge, he's going to react by wisely posting his hands out. But notice what's come off the ground, his knee. As soon as his knee is off the mat, we're going to hip escape. I'm going to slide my hips backwards underneath that knee until I can start to create frames on his body with my hands. My forearm is no longer long enough to maintain a solid frame, so I need to transition to my hands. Now, for those of you who are familiar with more advanced guards, we can move into things like butterfly from here. We can move into single leg X. We can move into a half guard. But if you're unfamiliar with all of that, we're going to do a full hip escape and get back to the seated guard. It'll look like this. Once I'm in this position, I pendulum kick, and I build up onto my base, kind of like how we did against the knee cut when we're talking guard retention. This post is matching his force vector, so as he drives into me, I've got to keep this elbow in line with his force. Now I just start hip escaping away from him until I'm back in my seated guard. Okay, did you get all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's a lot, all right? Escaping is extremely difficult, but like I said, you can't get frustrated, and you have to be as technical as possible. Here's why. Any mistake I make is an opportunity for him to submit me, okay? So if I make something as simple as this, if I'm bridging and I let my frame slip off, I just gave up my back, okay? So all of these pieces are mandatory, unfortunately. I wish it was easier to escape from the mount. It's just not easy. So let's go through one more time, guys. I'm gonna simplify it as best as we can. So again, he's in the mount. I've got to get his hands on the ground. I'm going to knee him in the butt as I put my frame against his hip. I'm going to get on my side. So I'm going to do a little bridge and get up onto my side. Now I'm going to do one more bridge as I start to try to knock his hips off of my body, not with the intention to necessarily make him fall over, but just to get his knee off the ground. As soon as I feel his knee come off the mat, my hips explode out from underneath him. Okay, notice how I'm building up to my elbow here. All right, again, if you're familiar with more advanced guards, you can go butterfly, you can go single leg X, and you don't need to fully hip escape. But if you're not familiar with all this stuff, just come out all the way and notice how I maintain this frame. This is very important, guys. If I don't maintain some sort of frame in between the two of us, then as I'm getting away from him, he's just going to come back and engage again. So I'm keeping a frame here just to check him and keep him away from me. All right, so I'll do it from another perspective so you guys can see what it looks like. So kind of split this up into phases. Phase 1 get his hands on the mat and get your frames. So I'm gonna do phase 1. Here I go. Get his hands on the mat and get my frames. Phase 2, get on your side. I got on my side. Phase 3, get his back knee off the mat. And phase 4, hip escape out from underneath him and get back to a seated guard. Again, my headlights are pointing at him. Okay, so we're gonna talk about what we can do if our opponent is just way bigger than us and how we can still use the frame and hip escape. But for right now, we're just gonna kind of work with our partner and allow them to drill the escape. So we're not fighting. We're not like preventing them from escaping, okay? I'll show it one more time without talking. We'll do it from this side. We haven't done this side yet. Okay, here we go. Okay, so last thing, guys, I want to just touch on those 2 movements we did, the hip escape and the bridge. If you're not familiar with these, very, very easy. So first, the bridge. All a bridge is where we lift our hips up, okay? The first bridge, you're going straight up because you're using that knee. The second and third bridges, you're getting on your shoulder, okay? You're not rolling over, right? Rolling over is going to allow him to easily get to the technical mount, and it's going to force your frame to slip out. So I bridge, and I get to my side. Second time, I bridge, and now the hip escape is just where we're butt scooting. Okay, that's what a hip escape is. I'm pushing with my feet, and I'm using my frame to push somebody's weight off of me. This is gonna be the only escape we're working this class, guys. So don't worry, we have the entire class to drill this. Does anybody have any questions? Bobby.
You said something about don't do this, it gives up your back.
Yeah, that was letting the frame that's on their hip slip past their center line. So I'll show it without being in position. So if Coach Seth comes up here real quick. Come on up, Coach. Okay, so here's my frame that's on his hip. I want to anchor my hands somehow to his body. So you can do that by grabbing his pants here, grabbing his skirt, or just if it's no gi, cupping the hip bone. What I don't want to do is I don't want my forearm to come across his belly button. If I do that, I'm essentially opening up this arm and allowing him to get to my back. So you have to be very mindful of this frame. As I'm doing all of this, I am keeping this frame right here stuck to his gut, and I'm using regulated tension of actively pushing my shoulders forwards to keep this frame strong. I'm not just spamming it, right? I'm not just pushing as hard as I can, because if he redirects that, if I'm just, then he basically arm drags me. And if I'm just not doing anything with it, then it's totally useless. So I'm using the regulated tension, making sure that I'm finding that Goldilocks zone and maintaining that frame. All right, any other questions, guys? Try it out. We'll come back and we'll look at some more details. 1, 2. So let's go ahead and look at now how we're gonna escape if our opponent's bigger than us. This is gonna be requiring a little bit of a hip switch, and I'll explain what that means. Okay, so I'm gonna do it from the back, guys. So everything's gonna be the same in the beginning. I get his hands on the mat, and I get onto my side. Now, the hard part is getting their body shifted off of me. And the reason that it's difficult is because they're so much bigger than I am. So theoretically, if I can make my body as big or bigger than their body, then their center of gravity is gonna be easier to move. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch our legs, and we're gonna start to build up onto our knee. And this is actually gonna start using my hips as a frame as opposed to just using my forearm, okay? So if anyone in here has done the half gamba before, this is the exact same concept. So again, as I start to bridge, I'm turning my hips down to the floor, and I'm using my butt, essentially, as a frame. Now, look at how high his knee comes off the mat, all right? It's gonna be very easy for me to start hip escaping out from underneath him. This seems like it would be more difficult against someone who's bigger than you, but think of it like this. What's stronger, a single arm or your hips? Every time it's gonna be your hips. So if I have somebody bigger than me on top, I switch my legs, and I'm gonna start to build up so that my bottom is pointing straight up into the sky. I'm bringing my elbow to my knee here. Okay? This is where the frame becomes very important to maintain on the hip, because as I'm building up, if I let this frame start slipping off, then they're gonna take the back, okay? So this is something that you guys can try. It does require a little bit of finesse to get the knee to the elbow here, but try it out, see if it's something that you can get working. So I'll show it from the front view. Everything's the same in the beginning. I get their hands down, I'm blocking their hips. So I'm gonna switch my hips, and as I start to push my frame up into him, I'm gonna be rotating my knee down to the mat. So now my bottom is acting as a frame, essentially making my body much wider. And now again, I start shooting my hips out, and it's the same exact escape. Okay, guys, so this is one that you can try. If you can't get it right now, don't worry, okay? Focus on the primary escape, because that is, again, the primary escape. That's the one that we need to work and really make successful, okay? Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. I'll show the pantomime movement one more time. So I'm on my side. I'll pantomime, coach. So I'm on my side here. I'm switching my legs because I'm trying to get my hips pointing down to the floor. So I switch my legs, and now I'm gonna start rotating, pulling my left knee towards my left elbow, okay? That's bringing my hips up higher, creating a higher platform that they're sitting on top of. Boom, just like this. And then again, I'm just gonna blast out and get back to guard. So give it a try, guys. If you don't have it, if you can't get it down, no problem. We'll continue working on it. Any questions? Ready, 1, 2.